Hi, I'm Deborah Walker, and this is Food for Thought. And welcome, everybody. Hi, Vin. Thank you for showing me that you can now hear us. Anyway, today I've got a guest, and it's Denise Oliver from Do Nutrition, and she's also a tutor from Nutritional Healing Foundation. So those are the people that trained me originally, and Denise was one of the support tutors and was training when I was actually there, weren't you?
I was, yes.
And so they're a great bunch of people, and I really wanted the audience out there and yourselves to really see that it's not just me that has this message, but that everybody who's trained in my way does. So Denise, we've got an eclectic show because we have an eclectic audience who are really, really open. And last week, just as a for instance, we covered everything from zombies to liver. So,
okay, yeah, I can go with that.
Yes, I thought you'd be able to help with all that. So let me just say a few hi's in the chat box. We've got Michael as usual, Michael Stephen. Hi, Michael. Jim and Lorraine, you're here. Hurrah! And you missed it last week, so hopefully you're not on podcast. Right. So, Denise, tell us, what led you to this journey that you've had to natural health?
My own ill health, actually. I've suffered with many forms of named symptom diseases. So, for instance, stomach ulcers, IBS, more recently Lyme's disease. I had a very early menopause, which I knew wasn't good for me. And I've experienced chronic fatigue as well. And it was not being happy with the GP's reaction and, just basically just not being heard, I think, that set me on a journey. I think it was 2003 or 2004, I can't recall exactly now, but it's way back. Had a car accident. At the time I was working as a nurse in the medical outpatients at the local hospital. And I was off work for 7 weeks with a neck injury. And in that time, I just sat quietly, visits to the osteopath going on, that sort of thing. And I just looked at all the books I had, and I had this startling revelation that I probably had at that time. It has increased enormously since then. Probably somewhere between 50 and 100 books that bore no relation to the job I did, and I had about 10 that did. And I looked at all these books, a lot to do with cooking and alternative styles of cooking. So very much I've been into vegetarian food for a long time, although I do have some chicken and fish in my diet. And also read a lot of Deepak Chopra's work. I had books on angels and Reiki and yoga and all sorts of things. And it sort of started to dawn on me that I needed to look elsewhere. But it was still a very alien world at that time. I then got talking to somebody I only knew as an infrequent acquaintance, and she was eating food that I'd never seen her eat before. And I said, Helen, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Oh, I'm on a detox. What the hell's a detox? What are you talking about? And she said, oh, I'm on this great course. I said, right, what is it? And it was a Nutritional Healing Foundation's course. And she said, you need to come along and experience it for a day. So I did. And it was a very interesting first encounter with the Nutritional Healing Foundation, because there was the lovely Ali Holden at the front of the class. I was a little bit late. I'd got lost trying to find the venue. And so I snuck in at the back of the room, and I was sort of I thought quietly fertling around in the bottom of my bag to get a pad and a pen out. And my head shot up from inside my bag when I heard her say, yes, I've had my hand in my urine since the early hours of the morning. What did she just say then? And I'm looking around the room thinking, surely somebody else found that, a startling thing to say. But no, nobody else in the room did. And I thought, what is she talking about? I know she'd burnt her hand and she'd used urine therapy to actually, there was no burn, no sign of it on her hand at all. And I thought, what a bunch of weirdos. And what the hell's going on here? Because obviously as a nurse, the last thing you would want to do would be use urine. You threw it away. You tested it, but you threw it away. You certainly didn't apply it to anything. And I thought, oh, don't like the feel of this, don't like the sound of this. And at the end of that day, I signed up for a 2-year course, like you do. And I haven't looked back. I really haven't. It's really changed me, my health, my whole approach to how I view healing has changed. And the fact that we can do an awful lot for ourselves if we know how. And we really don't need to be running off to the doctors and spending an absolute fortune in pharmacies. We just don't. So, yeah. Do you like me to carry on talking, Debs? Or?
Absolutely. It's interesting about the urine therapy. Just recently, Mr. C did a session with, I think it was allegedly Dave, who actually is on a urine fast at the moment. So there's been a lot of talk across TNS in different shows, from what I gather, about urine therapy. And it's a therapy that many people just don't use, but I use it on my skin. I occasionally use it to pat my kidneys. And I mainly use the isotherapy to create remedies. Right. So that's when I use it. What about yourself?
Oh, well, I used to have horrendous cold sores, massive. They'd be enormous. From the tip of my nose to sort of down one, under one nostril would just be so swollen and so sore. And it would take weeks before it actually healed. And I would go to the doctor to get a prescription for something I can't even remember the name of now, that I would apply day in, day out, and it would make me feel so sick. But it was the only thing at that time that I knew would actually take the swelling down and bring the whole thing under control. And I had these month in, month out, they would start flare up again before the last one had gone away. It was horrendous. And then on my very first day as a student with nutritional healing, guess what I had on my face? I had a cold sore. And the lovely Fran, whose surname escapes me now, from Nutritional Healing, turned to me and went, "You need to put some urine on that." And I thought, oh, there's a bit of a theme going on here. I seem to be being told about urine a lot. So I did. That night I went home and peed on a cotton wool pad, and lay on my bed, applied it to the cold sore, and I could not believe the difference in the size of it the next morning. It was less than half the size. All the swelling was gone out of it, and I just thought, whoa, what is this? What's happened here? I thought, just because I can pee something, I can actually cure something else. It was just unbelievable. And I very, very, very rarely get one now at all. But urine is the first thing I would put on it, no doubt about it. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And of course, my urine's much clearer now, much cleaner. And when taking, I alter my vitamin intake throughout the year, depending on how I'm feeling and the season and all of that. But obviously when I'm doing a lot of B vitamins, well, they're being peed out in that as well. So it's full of those. So why not apply it? Don't waste it. So, yeah.
I agree.
Good stuff.
Yeah, I would do pea baths, as I call them.
Yeah.
And that, because I have so many superfoods and I take the supplements all the time, I find that if I get in there at the end of the day and it's a bit too late, I can't sleep. It puts me on such a high, and the energetics that's kind of I gain from it are huge. Yeah.
You're fading a little bit at the minute, Debs. I can only get a certain amount of your conversation.
Okay, is that better?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Now, Jim and Lorraine have put up urine therapy part 1 in the chat box, so There you go. And there is stuff online. There's quite a lot of bits and pieces online. And Lee's saying, I always used to pee in the bath.
Yeah, totally. Well, if you actually think about it, as a fetus inside your mother, you would have actually been peeing into that amniotic fluid. So you would have been swimming in it anyway. So why not? Kids pee naturally in the bath, and there's nothing wrong with it whatsoever. No. So yeah. I don't know why we take on this. It's not natural for us to utilise it, because all it is at the end of the day is what is being cleaned out of the blood. It's not a waste product in the same way that our faeces is. It just isn't. So yeah. It's not a therapy I recommend on a regular basis. Clients have to be ready for it. But yeah, anybody that's got major skin outbreaks, I cautiously move them towards urine therapy. And it's brilliant.
I agree. I very rarely use it with clients unless they've come to me through the the alternative kind of routes through friends, because I know they're going to be far more open about things.
Yeah, definitely. I was just trying to look for something about it. Something was in my mind, but it's gone again. Yeah, they have to be ready. And I think as I practice more, my intuition tells me when people are ready to do this now. And it's not my first port of call, but it's there. It's always there, and it's so simple. It's free.
It's free. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Spend your money on anything that anything else. It's there and it works. So yeah, marvelous stuff.
The thing for me is that often we turn to supplements, and we feel that good health has to cost. And there are, urine therapy, the diet, the water, which actually don't cost a lot of money, which can make massive shifts in your health.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. I totally agree with you. And I think sometimes, in fact, it's never my first port of call, supplementation, and a lot of my clients, it's actually what they expect. And I think that's because we're so entrenched in the medical model of trolling along to see your doctor, and that before you've even sat down, there's a prescription virtually written for you to take away. And no, there's a lot more we can do before we have to go down that route of recommending supplementation. But there is a need for it, no doubt about that at all. I'm a big fan of supplementation.
I was having a conversation yesterday because I did a presentation to a group in the morning about oils and water and energy and concentration, and a business person approached me and said that he put in place a plant-based diet. He felt very much better from it, but he did not believe in supplementation at all, and he was totally anti it.
Right.
Why would you put supplementation in place?
That would depend on the individual, and I would be very purposeful about it. Yes, at the end of the day, most of my clients will end up with a very similar profile of supplementation, but the intention behind it would be different for everybody. So, B vitamins, for instance, couldn't manage without them because they're so useful in stressful situations, depending on whether it's mental or physical stress. Would depend on which type of B vitamins I would recommend. Things like that. And oils, we just don't have the right type of oils in our diet. So again, oils are very important. Antioxidants really important with the type of lifestyles that we lead, and so on and so on. So there's many that we can choose from. There's many to take from the pot, but it has to be purposeful, and it has to be absolutely right for that person. They have to be ready to take them as well. I say to them, if you're not hydrated, then you're wasting your money, because a lot of the vitamins we're going to recommend are water soluble, and if they can't actually access the water, then guess what you're going to do? You're just going to get rid of them. So, your body's just going to go, can't deal with this, and out they come the other end. It's literally money down the toilet. So why go there to start with? Let's start with changes to the diet. And people notice big differences when they start to make changes in their diet. I'll share this with you, and this came from a friend of mine whose husband was in engineering, and apparently in engineering they have a test and they call it the Bob and Wow test. And Bob stands for best of the best, and Wow stands for worst of the worst. And so they put everything together and test it, and it's the best it can be at that point. And what they're doing is they're looking for the bits that they on paper should work, but in practice don't. And so that's then the worst case scenario. So they take the worst of the worst, they rejig it all, and then retest it. So it's the best of the best. And this goes on and on and on until they're happy with whatever it is. So, for instance, if it's a new aeroplane, you want to be absolutely sure that the engine's going to keep you up in the sky. And I do this with clients where food's concerned, especially if they're really, really reluctant to give something up. So I ask them to keep a food diary without the particular, let's say it's wheat. You know, we know wheat and dairy cause a lot of problems these days. So I ask them to keep things out of their diet that are wheat-based and for, say, 3 to 4 weeks. How do you feel without it? And sometimes they don't actually think they feel any different. So I then ask them to put it back in. How does that make you feel? And then they experience the worst case scenario, the bloating, the burping, the wind coming out the other end. And just feeling generally sluggish, headaches, that sort of thing. So then they take it out and recognise that actually without it, they feel pretty good. So they then recognise when it's the best of the best situation for them. So Bob and Wow. And they just buy into the Bob and Wow. They just think, yeah, it's a great name. And they're very willing to actually participate by using that method. So that's a good one. Put that in your toolkit.
That's cracking. I think I'll use that myself.
Yeah. It's a good way of getting around clients who are a bit reluctant, you know, especially things like dairy. I recently had a client who I asked her to cut out dairy, and I just felt this was affecting her thyroid picture. And she said she cut it out and didn't think anything had changed. And then she shared a milkshake with her son, and she said within seconds she had a thumping headache. But thought, no, I've just picked my son up from school. He's all noisy. That's why I've got the headache. And then she said a couple of days later, her husband made them a meal, and he used creme fraiche as the creamy sauce. And she said an hour later she was fast asleep, and she put it down to actually having the dairy product in the food. And she said, I now know. I said, I've worked out from the diary I've been keeping that when I have certainly dairy in that sort of creamy sense, in an evening, I fall asleep. If I don't have it, I don't. And so for her, she'd worked out what the best thing for her was to rarely have it. Otherwise, she did get these symptoms. And so, yeah, she's been converted to nut milks now. So she's making those, which is just brilliant. It's like, I just love it when it takes time. These sessions take time. It's, you know, over quite a few weeks and that. But gradually, you can get people off things that most definitely aren't right for them. And for me now, I just work very intuitively, but it's I've also learned to take my time with that intuition. I make a note of what I'm thinking is what this person needs to take out, what this person needs to put in. And we go very slowly with it. And I found that is by far the best way of doing things. But for my practice anyway, others might find that's not how it works for them.
I find the pace issue really interesting because I work on a very slow but sure movement forward with my clients on purpose so that I can really see what is actually making a difference and what isn't making a difference. And I don't put loads of things in at the same time. No. And that way I can review it.
Yeah, totally. And the client can.
Yeah,
that's the other thing. It's actually that, you know, it's good for them to be able to review it as well. So yeah, I'm with you on that. I used to think that value for money equaled throwing everything but the kitchen sink at them within a couple of sessions. And it's not. They just get overwhelmed and go away and just think that all your ideas are cuckoo, and you are as well. So I have learned to really slow it down. And but I do ask the clients, or they'll ask, how many sessions do you think I'll need? And I'll say 4 to 6 is a minimum. And in that time we can go through some really basic but profound techniques, hydration, diet, etc., supplementation. But after that, you might actually feel that you want to keep coming along to tweak this because you find yourself slipping back into old patterns. And it's the old patterns that then need the repatterning. And like yourself, I use the Psych K to help with that. And that can be phenomenal. I've got a client who made, just with one Psych K session, huge shift and got really calm around food, whereas at one time she used to panic around it and went for all the wrong foods and all of that. And she's so thrilled with her progress. And it's like, wow. And so am I. It's like, to me, it is like watching miracles unfold. It really is. So, yeah, passionate, to say the least, about what I do.
Absolutely. Give us a little bit of an understanding about Psych K. Because I know what you're talking about there, but there might be people out there who don't.
Okay, Psych K, a form of kinesiology. History-wise, I'm not actually sure how old it is, but I don't think it's many zillions of years old. But it's a brilliant tool for me to have as a therapist, and if there's a course anywhere near you, for you as an individual to go along and learn how to apply it yourself on a regular or irregular basis. And basically what they say in Psych K, and they use a quote from Henry Ford: if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And so I recognised, once I started on the nutritional healing journey, that there was something in me that wasn't shifting, and that I might think this and I might want to do that, but somehow I was my worst saboteur, and I didn't quite know what to do about this. I read the Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton, and at the back of Biology of Belief was a little thing about Psych K, and there was something about it that really shouted at me. That I needed something like this. But it was quite a journey before I actually got to doing anything about the Psych K. Got hold of the book by Rob Williams, who's the founder of Psych K. And the book explains to you why you need Psych K, but quite frustratingly, I felt at the time, not how to do it. And the recommendation was to go on a course. And then, I'm not sure how long after that, but along comes the very wonderful Mary Trenfield, who has done nutritional healing and also is a Psych K teacher. So Mary had done the basic, the advanced, and then gone off to America to spend time with Rob Williams to actually learn how to teach others how important Psych K is and how important it is for us. So then, were you there? I think you may have been on that first. I think you'd already done the first part, hadn't you? I think you had already done your basic when loads of us from Nutritional Healing, support tutors and tutors, got together, and Mary taught us how to change our negative beliefs into positive ones, which is about the upshot of it, really. It's about what would you rather have. So if you've got a lot of negative thoughts in your head, then it's about changing them into much more positive ones and using the Psych K techniques to do that. And it's just been absolutely brilliant for me. And I go in peaks and troughs now. When I first learnt it, I did a lot of Psych K, a lot on self-esteem and confidence issues and things like that. And I just know that it's helped me on an internal vibrational level to absolutely flourish. I love it. It's a brilliant tool. And what I'm going to say now is just my own personal opinion. But for me, it works better than EFT, although I love EFT as well. And I've done courses in that, but Psych K has a much more profound effect on me personally, and so I work with that with my clients, because if it's working with me, I believe that my vibration will help others, and the Psych K will help them. So yeah, I love it. So what would you rather have? Get curious about your negativity, and how would you like to reframe it, and that's what Psych K can help you with.
Yeah, it changed my life. I'd done all 3 courses by the time that Mary did your course, and it was because I was going on and on about it so much. Because I came back absolutely full of it to Ali and Elaine. And let me just explain for everybody out there. Elaine and Ali are basically run Nutritional Healing Foundations, and I just found within a weekend of doing the 2-day course, it had altered everything for me, my health and my perception on life, which I was finding quite difficult at that time. It just shifted everything. And the great thing about it is that it's a technique that is really quick. And once you've learnt it, it's simple to use. So it's not difficult in the slightest. It's well worth learning. Now, people in the chat box are just talking, Lee's talking about the new biology, so and about Bruce Lipton's work. And there's loads of stuff on YouTube from Bruce Lipton, so you can learn all about it. And he talks about Psych K, but he also talks about sort of spontaneous healing and those sort of aspects. Denise, what percentage or amount of health is influenced by the mind, do you think?
Oh, vast amount. Oh, absolutely. And I think that how can I put this? To not take into account that we are more than just a physical being is the wrong way of looking at health, which is where the NHS is falling down personally. Without taking into account the mind, the thoughts we think, how stressful that can be, our emotions, our spiritual disposition, without taking all of that into account, then we can't live a fulfilled life. We just can't. It's impossible. So I always say to my clients, do you want to be fed up? So, because I talk about feeding people heart, mind, body and soul. It's not just about the food that goes in. It's much, much more than that. Yeah, I'm not quite sure where I'm going to go with that now. What else do you want to talk about? I suppose
somebody's just asked, Sir Pumpkin Longshanks. Hello, Sir Pumpkin. And
okay.
He's just basically saying, what's Psych K? So I spelt it right for you for a start. It's PSYCH, and then it's a K. So it's Psychology Kinesiology is what it's shortened effectively of. And what it does is it rewires the software of the brain and all the energetic system. So it messes with the meridians and the blocks in the meridians and the belief of the left and right hemisphere of the brain. And what it does is it overrides the negativity and it enables you to shift yourself positively forward by almost rewiring your body energetics and the mind. So it's actually really quite powerful. So there you go, Sir Pumpkin.
And it brings a huge calmness, I think, into the body as well. And that's what I found. So this sort of sensation that I had, which was, you can boil down to one word, which was stress, of feeling like I was running to keep up with my life was just overwhelming. Whereas I don't feel like that now. Everything seems to fit into place. And I think one of the balances that really helped that was I have all the time I need to do everything I need and want to do with my life. And that's a frequent one that I do with clients, because we do tend to get to a point in our lives where we sort of see the end of our life rather than where we started from. And women in particular that I network with are like, I feel so panicked. I haven't got time to do this. I haven't got time to do that. And that's one of the balances I use regularly with them. And it creates huge changes for people. It's brilliant. I love Psych K, really do.
I integrate a number of energy therapies. So anyone who works with me, just, I effectively use EFT when they're talking, and I can see they're undoing things in their mind, kind of, like a movie, so they're explaining it. So I will use EFT. So guys, EFT is an emotional freedom technique, and that's what Denise referred to earlier, that she says she's not getting as good a results with. Now, EFT can be quite powerful, but like she says, I find like her Psych K can just cut to the chase and just get rid of everything completely. But if I've got a client who won't, who just really can't get into the balance of what I'm doing with them, EFTs are really quite a nice way of getting there. So you can deal with your negativity like that. So Lee's just saying, can I just address this negativity into perspective? We stand on a planet that is pumping out negative polarity, and that's at the base of the feet. It keeps us anchored to the ground, keeps us grounded. It's not a bad thing, okay? And, what do you think about that?
I think, that's brilliant, absolutely right. I think the negativity that I'm talking about is more that comes from society as a whole, whereby it's the thoughts are that we should perform in a certain way, and it's the negativity that's put on us by parents, not knowingly what they're doing or what they've done. It's that negativity that keeps us in our place and doesn't allow us to be who we're really meant to be. That's the negativity I'm talking about. It's the negativity that eats away at our self-esteem and self-confidence. And it comes from various walks of life, and you've been taught it since you were knee-high to a grasshopper, and in many ways you don't even know that you've got it, but it's holding you back in some way. And yes, in some way we do need it, because we want to be held onto the planet, don't we? But we also need to recognise that vibrationally it's okay to be positive, and some people struggle with being positive. Especially when they're surrounded by people who want to keep them in a place that's comfortable for the other person, rather than the person who's ready to break out of their mould. So that's the negativity I'm talking about. The Bruce Lipton work very much does position the fact that, the negativity, well, we are programmed up to about 7 years old, aren't we? Yeah.
Denise? And therefore we're often running habitual patterns which effectively are making our decisions now. I'm 43, and the fear of what I learned before I was 7 is
absolutely. And I think it's partly to do with what society as a whole thinks we should be doing. Sadly, and it sort of keeps us in our place. So there are ways within society that we can do what we want to do, and feel the freedom that I think we should all be feeling, to be able to be the best that we can be. But if we're kept down by other people's negative ideals, then that's not good for anybody. And so it's no wonder that people get angry a lot and, experience these frustrating negative emotions much more than they do joyful ones. So that's the sort of negativity that I'm referring to. And Bruce Lipton, brilliant, yes. I mean, he did recognise an awful lot that was going on, and his Biology of Belief was a book that helped me make that transition from thinking in the medical model, because my first career was as a nurse, to crossing that bridge into the alternative world. So I loved his book. It really did shift my perspective on how we can treat ourselves as opposed to be treated by others.
And the thing is, once you get to grips with the message from him, effectively it's about the fact that everything you think affects your DNA, and therefore it affects the fundamental movement forward of how your body's created.
Yes, absolutely. And that's where the vibration that I'm talking about, that's where that comes in, because it all, physically, mentally, emotionally and spiritually, it's all the same thing, but the vibration is so important, so important.
And Lee's just saying from the chat box, if the poles reversed, we'd switch internally. If the earth started pumping out positive charge, we'd output negative charges. Changes, who knows? Maybe we could levitate at that point. What do you think about that? Because I did meet somebody just recently. I won't mention his name, but he's going to come on at some stage. He's an author. And he was talking to me about the fact that he levitated. Have you levitated, Denise?
I haven't, no. I look forward to it. Maybe I'll feel like I'm levitating at the end of this show. Who knows?
Well, maybe Lee can give us some more ideas about that. Okay. So you talked earlier about stress.
Yeah.
Now, our course very much focus on it.
Yeah.
Just talk to us about stress and the impacts of it.
Stress, oh my God, where do you start? Where does it end? It's a big word, isn't it? You know, so few letters and so much. Everything that I've experienced, everything that my clients bring to me, I can sum up in that word, stress. It's, you know, the loads that we bear in life just cause us to crack and break, and without putting back into our bodies the nourishment that the body really needs, then those breaks they sometimes never heal. And that's what I'm working with my clients. So that stress within them just manifests, it all manifests differently for everyone. So you've got the stress of your ancestry to deal with, you've got the stress of the life you were born into, or you've chosen to be born into, as some people like to think. Yeah, it's a big deal. It really is a big deal. And there appears to be more and more for us to have to take on board. Life is running at such a pace, and it is actually, or it can feel like it's very difficult to step out of life and just calm everything down and allow the body the space and time it needs. People, I know, because I mainly do networking with women who think that sleeping is for wimps. No, sleeping is essential. It's essential to help the body to find the time to do all the repair and healing that it needs to do. If you don't sleep appropriately for the right number of hours for you in the right environment, then that's the stress as well. All the chemical and environmental pollution that there is, more stress on us, and whatever's affecting us is affecting the planet, and it's affecting us, every cell in our body. Yeah, stress is a big deal, really big deal. And for me, it was massive, but what I was doing was I was keeping it very much internalized. I wasn't expressing it in any way. I didn't know where to go, I didn't know who to do it with. And it was only when I was doing nutritional healing that certainly I think probably in the latter stages of the couple of years that I was a student, that I began to realise I needed to open up. Really did need to open up big time. Naturally, much more of an introvert than an extrovert, and so would sort of just keep things to myself. But yeah, gradually over time, found people that I could trust, so that I could open up and offload. And I think in the past I've experienced depression, but actually what that depression amounted to was not expressing, not actually having a way of fulfilling my need to express my desires. And so it just got trapped. And eventually the result was chronic fatigue. So I physically couldn't do anything. The body just made sure I couldn't, but my mind didn't stop racing. And so it was then getting into more mindful practices, listening to relaxation tapes, and recognising how important it is to take time out and, stop. And it's okay to stop and watch a film. It's okay to stop and go for a walk in nature. It's okay to sit and quietly read a book. It's okay to do that sort of thing. You don't have to be seen to be working at the coalface 24/7. You just don't. So yeah, stress, big deal. Stressed with a D on the end. Spell it the other way round. and you've got dessert. So if you want to serve yourself up a large plate of dessert, then that might be a big stress for you. That might be something that really does stress your body. So lots of ways of looking at stress. But it's the load that we bear that creates the cracks in us. And if that load just gets too heavy, then we crumble under it. End of. And the cracks show up in various places in the body, mind, emotions, spiritually. So, yeah.
It was really interesting for me because for years I was a raw foodist and I couldn't understand why my health wasn't perfect.
Yeah.
And I had this mad job, as everybody knows, at Nutritional here at Foundation. And basically, it wasn't until I did the course and Ali almost said, sort your stress out. And Ali's the principal who taught at the time. And I looked at the stress I was under and I thought, how did I manage to keep going?
Yeah.
And Michael Stephen has said, stress is a killer. And you're absolutely right, as far as I'm concerned. And Lee's saying, stress for me is the trigger for cancer. What do you think about that, Denise?
Yeah, I think if I think if that's how your body's going to manifest its stress, that's how it's going to do it. Stress is it's a massive load to bear, and if your stress from whatever direction it's coming from starts to affect you to that cellular level, then that is what is going to manifest, most definitely. But for other people, it could be a heart attack. For other people, their blood pressure goes up. For other people, it could be a stroke. It's how that stress manifests within you, and there's a bigger picture to be looked at to find out how that might be. And going back to Bruce and his looking at epigenetics and all of that, there's a lot to take into account as to telling your story and finding out how you've got to where you are. But stress will play a big part in whatever named illness you are going to manifest. Most definitely.
Now, you talked about sleep, and I believe that sleep's become a part-time hobby. If I'm honest. When my clients will, if I say to them, how much sleep do they get? And they'll say to me, sleep? Well, maybe I go to bed about 2:00 in the morning and I'm shattered and I'm getting up at 6. And you think, can you not see the picture?
I know. I never cease to be amazed by people who say that. And it's like, you cannot run 24/7. You just can't. I'm so tired all the time. Okay, let's look at this then, shall we? So what time do you go to bed? And like you say, they'll go, oh, well, I start to feel tired around about 10:30, 11. Oh, great, that's good, yeah. But when do you actually go to bed? And actually some people don't even know what time they go to bed. This sort of constant communication that we appear to be able to create these days with our mobiles and texting and Facebook and all of that. And some people I think, have a fear that they're going to miss something. Yeah. And that to go to sleep with they just can't do it. No, I mustn't. I've got to stay awake. So you then get up at 6:00 and you work all day and you've got kids and you do this and you do that and you're wondering why you're crumbling underneath this. Come on, not rocket science.
I remember a case history being done in front of us when I was training, and the lady said she felt ever so tired all the time, and Ali just said, you just need to go and get some sleep. Yeah. And I thought, is people going to pay to have that advice?
Yeah, well, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, obviously you can dress it up more than that, but yeah, you do. And sometimes I think people need to be given permission. There's something about it in the society that we're in these days. People do feel that they can't do for whatever reason because someone else has told them this and someone else told them that, and they've read this and they've read that. And actually what they need is permission to do things that are right for them. Not for anybody else, but what is absolutely the right thing for them. So is that permission based in the number of hours they need to sleep, the fact they might need a nap during the day, or is it just that they need to take time out and do a 5-minute meditation in the day just to help calm everything down? Whatever that permission needs to be, when that client's with me, I tend to be able to work out what's right for them. And once they've been given that permission, they start to fly. But it's so sad that we do. I've needed it, so I recognise it in other people. But it is quite sad that that we do need someone else to say, you know, it's okay to do this, or it's okay not to do that if it's not right for you. Because we're sort of force-fed all this stuff by the media in whatever form it comes, that this is the best thing for us. Well, actually, no, it might not be the best thing for you. And it's the same with diet, like you're talking about being a raw fooder and yet not having the best of health. You can eat the best of health, but if you're not thinking the best of health and you're not emotionally in tune with the best of health, then you're just not going to feel it, because you're challenging some other aspect of you. No amount of vitamins is going to sort that out. And maybe even no amount of sleep will sort it out, because it's a package deal that we have to put together for ourselves and our clients in order for them to actually feel, as I say to my clients, wonderful rather than fed up. And you know, this sort of healthy living, well, you want to be healthful on every level. Yeah. So heart, mind, body and soul, it's really important.
Yeah.
Go on, no, it's okay.
I was going to say, I absolutely agree with you. And people don't, well, the media now and work with the performance management, it's all set up so people are not allowed to stop.
Yeah. There was, I met my daughter yesterday and we went to Starbucks, I know, but we did have salad and I had a green juice from there, which I quite liked them for that reason. And there was a girl in front of us, and the lady taking the orders said, "Oh, hello, I've not seen you for a while." And she said, "Oh, how long have you got for your lunch today?" She said, "I've got 15 minutes. 15 minutes for lunch?" Thought, geez, that's terrible, and that's stressful.
Yeah.
That is, you cannot possibly eat healthily and emotionally well in 15 minutes. You just can't. The amount of time she's had to take to actually get from where she works to actually then go and buy something and throw that food down her throat, because she's not going to taste it particularly. And in actual fact, she was actually buying one of those creamy dessert things, and there's no nutritional goodness in that whatsoever. So it's a bit like, oh, we really have it all cockeyed. We really do. It's not good. But I recognise that I will do that as well. If I've got a deadline for something, I will push myself far too much. But I know how my body feels when I'm doing that now. And so I recognise that I cannot push myself for hours on end. I just can't. So I will down tools and get out the house or whatever, because I work from home, or just go and sit in my garden if it's not raining, as it has been doing the last couple of days torrentially, and just, you know, give myself that however long I need breather, and then come back to it, because otherwise it's just so draining, and don't make good decisions as a result. You know, so things don't get done effectively and often have to be redone. So it is recognising what's right for you. And it's, I think it's more that, I think we tend to spend a lot of our time in society the way we are, looking at what other people are doing. Well, if I'm doing this, why can't I be as effective as that person? Because you're not that person. You don't have their ancestry. You weren't brought up like them. You don't live their life. And so you have to deal with what is your life, what is right for you in any given moment.
Interesting. I, you know, where do I start with stress and all of this? It's, you know, it's just a huge factor in people's lives, isn't it? And it's like, it's the whole boiling the frog slowly. You know, the children are placed into this whole stress system through our education, and, you know, through they're constantly tested, and then it just builds up and builds up. And so I get to someone at 40 and effectively, you know, they think this is the norm and they can't stop. They're almost trained to be that way nowadays.
Yeah. I'd like to say that from my own personal point of view, I recognise that how stressful, kids are having to do flipping SATs when they're not even 10 or whatever age it is they do them at primary school. And it's just so unnecessary. It's just terrible. And so the kids are put under this pressure to perform. The teachers are put under pressure to pressurise the kids to perform. And it just creates this horrible maelstrom of kids not being happy at school. Yeah. And if they're not happy at school, then they're going to go home and not be happy at home. And it's just this terrible catch-22 situation. I've always said to mine, just do the best that you can. And doesn't matter what anybody else does. You don't have to be an A-star student right the way through. You just don't. You're going to burn out if you keep going like that. It's okay to be average. It really is okay to be average. And I just can't bear this whole philosophy of beating everyone else to get to where you need to be. Be the best that you can be in whatever field you feel is right for you. And I've always taught my kids that. It goes against the grain. It's not how a lot of their friends were taught or anything like that. And I was given all sorts of warnings from other parents that my children were going to be this and my children were going to be the other. And they're absolutely fine. There's absolutely nothing, well, I can't say there's nothing wrong with them, but they get on with their life, their way. And that's what's important. And that's what I've learnt as well, is that it's okay to be me. And I'm not hurting anybody by being me. And I'm definitely not hurting myself. And, when we think about the training we had with cellular philosophy and, making sure that my cell is in the best condition it can be is what's really important.
It's fascinating that you're talking about being you, because I think that's been my biggest learning curve since leaving the corporate sector and actually running my own business. And the more I've become me,
yeah,
and the person that I know I can be without worrying about offending other people or not being good enough for other people, the more I've actually enjoyed life.
Yeah, quite. Absolutely. And you just find yourself being surrounded by like-minded people as well, and those that can't think like you, don't want to think like you, don't want to live like you, don't want to support you, they drop away. And there was a point in time where I felt very alone, and I know that Martha Beck in one of her books talks about the empty elevator syndrome, whereby you've stepped out of one life and you're moving into another, but you're in this empty space where there's just you, and you're not quite sure where you're going, and so you're on this elevator ride and you don't know who's going to step in that elevator with you or which floor you're going to step off onto, where the people that are like you are going to be. And when I read that, I thought, that's where I'm at. That was quite some years ago. But now I am surrounded by lovely people, really lovely people that share very similar views to me. And they're not far away if I'm feeling a bit down. It's very easy to Facebook or text someone and go, just feeling a little bit this, that or the other today. I just wonder if I could chat this through. And that's been a great thing for me to learn. And to just know when I'm not in the right place, not in the right situation, and really just not let it get me down, because I used to think it was all my problem, but actually it's not. I don't want to sound arrogant. I'm now okay as I am. To be me feels good. Yes, there's still work to be done, and there will always be work to be done. And quite honestly, I just think that I will be on this planet in this human form until my work is complete. And then I'll be able to say goodbye to this form that I'm in at the moment. But I know there's still a lot of work to do. So looking forward to it. Mm-hmm. So at a point at which a lot of people are probably thinking, can't wait to retire. Flipping heck, don't want to retire. Just really, really, I think for the first time in my life, in the last 3 or 4 years, really met myself and like myself. So the person I was for the first 50 years of my life was a shadow of the person that I am now. And I've stepped out of my own shadow, I think. And like you said earlier, having done lots of things that were more on the dark side, let's say, starting out in the NHS and things like that, I've most definitely turned to a much lighter and healthier and happier way of being. And that is so important. And I recognise how I was most definitely a human stressing. Deepak Chopra talks about us in these terms, and a human doing. Now, you have to do some things, but I was doing all the time, and I was doing to avoid dealing with all the stuff that I was holding on to. And so now, being is really important to me. I'm first and foremost a human being, and that's what I always remind myself. I don't want it. I will not go back to being a human stressing. I just won't. It's not on the cards.
Really interesting. Now, before we have a break, and I try and work out how to integrate the music again, Lee's asked, I know, don't. Where is Ducky when you need him? But anyway, Lee's got a question. It says, would you filter your urine? For example, would you pee in a bottle and put it in the sun, moon for a day to aid that filtration method? Or would you consume it raw? Denise, what do you think?
Again, it would depend on where you're up to, what your diet's like, and why you would want to actually want to drink your own urine. That would be something that I would have to look into with you personally. I've never put my urine in the sun or the moon, I have to be honest.
He's talking about the UV light.
Yeah.
Sanitising it.
Yeah. No, I haven't. It's antibacterial anyway. It's actually a very clean product. Unless you've got issues, for instance, diabetes, where there might be sugar in the urine, then that would be different again. Or you've got kidney problems where proteins getting through into the urine. But other than that, it's 99.9% water. It comes out of the body at the right temperature. It's body temperature, and it contains only the I've used the word salts, minerals and vitamins and that the body is just homeostatically processing at that point in time. So so unless you've got some sort of clinical condition that means that there are other things in your urine, then I don't know. I don't know that I particularly would use UV light on it.
I think, the moon energy is interesting. Aspects of that, but I'd have to experience it for myself, in honesty.
Yeah, I would as well. I do remember that training as a nurse, that the way I was trained, that we were always encouraged to be our own experiment. So we would, as student nurses, be asked to feel what it was like to lie on a bed and be moved by somebody else. We would ask to be everybody in the group had to do things like be hoisted on a toilet hoist, for instance, so that you could understand the fear, the trepidation that a patient would feel, because they're basically at your mercy, and not only that, but they're often in some sort of state of undress as well. So there's all that added in. So I learned that from, that was one of the things I have taken away from nursing, that you should be your own best experiment before you recommend it to someone else. I just don't think that on a vibrational level you can come across as coherent if you haven't. And I don't recommend anything I haven't done myself. Ever.
So I think Lou's saying just chill it and add apple juice and orange juice as an option. And to be honest, at first the taste can be quite off-putting, depending on actually what you're eating and drinking and where you are in regards to cleansing. So, or he's saying one ice cube or two. Cracking. Thanks, Lou.
Yeah, stirred, not shaken, or shaken, not stirred.
Right, we're back.
Woo!
Hello. I know, everybody thought they were going to get mud honey there, touch me, I'm sick, but that's me trying to still work out the software behind all the scenes, so sorry guys, I'll play it later. Anyway, we're back with Denise Oliver.
Hi there.
She's from Do Nutrition. Or do you call it Denise Oliver Nutrition?
Well, the DO stands for they are the initials of my name, so it just shortened it. And sort of the do was go and do something about your nutritional status. So it sort of seemed to work well. So, yeah, I've liked that name right from the start, and I've not thought about changing it in any way. So it will be my name forever and a day while I'm doing what I'm doing.
And you are doing quite a lot around Chester area, aren't you? Because I've noticed that you're becoming a little bit of a force to be reckoned with.
Do you think?
Yeah, it's coming through on Facebook and all the other things you're doing.
Yeah, I just my health has improved and my energy has increased. Yeah, I just slowly but surely get myself out there, get to networking groups, and do as many talks at networking as I can, so that people know that I'm here. Use social media a lot, because I'm a new business. If I was established, I may not want to be social mediaing quite as much as I do. But yeah, I think it's important to do what you can, really. But again, it was one of those things. At first I found it quite stressful, a bit like you with your buttons that you're pressing and things like initially. But now I know what I'm doing, it's so much easier. So much easier. So yeah, it's all good stuff. I love it.
It's good fun, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's when people who knew me when I wasn't well, are like, oh my God, you are so different now. It's so good to see that, how well you look, etc., etc. And it's like, wow, thank you. And people I don't even realise are following me on Facebook and Twitter and all of those things. I come up to me and go, you never stop. And it's like, I really do stop, because I think it's so important. But it would appear that I don't. But that's just knowing how to manipulate the social media sites so that you're always in people's consciousness, whether they want you there or not.
I almost spend, how do I spend it? Because it's such a passion now. Although I spend more time on it, I seem to have more time for myself than ever.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. It's really interesting, isn't it? Time does seem to expand to fill the space you need, but I never used to feel like that. Everything was just used to come crashing in on me. But when I have a sense that I'm feeling overwhelmed now, I will stop and work out why I feel overwhelmed, what is going on, and what can I do about it. In the past, I had an expectation that somebody would stop me and help me sort it out. Well, nobody does that in life, and it's about taking responsibility and working out what's right for me as an individual. And again, it just comes back to myself, what's right for myself, and going from there. Good stuff.
And, coming back to something you were saying earlier about mindful practices.
Yeah.
Do you want to just expand on that? Because
I
know.
And time as well. I should just give you, for instance, on how you can see just how much time you have, is if you just stop for 1 minute, just especially on mobile phones these days, we can put a timer on for 1 minute and literally just stop, put your feet on the ground and just make sure you're sitting comfortably and breathe for 1 minute and just count how many breaths in and out that you take in 1 minute, and just feel how that time expands, and that 1 minute can feel so much longer than 1 minute. And if you just stop 2 or 3 times a day and just do that, your day will feel so much longer, and you will just be so much more present and so much calmer about things. Mindfulness is a brilliant thing. I'm very new to it. I still have a lot to learn, but just the mindfulness around breathing was one of the things that I learned and really helped to calm my stress levels down and keep me much more level-headed, much more grounded. Yeah. If I'm feeling stressed now, it's like, where am I breathing? Where in my body am I actually breathing? Am I breathing appropriately? And I will just stop myself. Sometimes I will just lie myself on the floor, because as I said before, I work from home, and I will just allow my whole body to just be aware of that I am supported by the earth beneath me, rather than looking outside of myself to other people to support me. I know I can do it for myself. That doesn't mean I don't need help. I will go for help. For instance, I have Alexander technique at the moment, so there are certain aspects of myself that I can't see. So I go and ask other people to, if you like, shine the light in the areas that I need help with. And that's something that I learned a long time ago is absolutely vital to do. I will ask for help with my diet. I will ask for help with whatever, homeopathy, whatever it is I tune into and feel that is right for me at that time. So it's all good stuff I never did before.
Yeah, I remember years ago when I had my corporate job, I used to see a naturopath called Jean Hepworth, absolutely brilliant, I have to say. And I would go and see her because I was falling apart. And I'd walk through the door and she'd say to me, she'd ask me what I was doing and she'd say, "You still doing that job?" And I always saw her when I got a promotion. And basically what she'd do is she'd patch me back up and she'd say to me, "You need to meditate." And I'd say to her, "Jean, I don't have enough time to breathe. Never mind, meditate." And I get my clients through the door now and they're exactly the same position as I was then. Yeah. But I was talking to Tom Evans just recently, who's an author, and he basically said to me about meditation, and he was talking about the fact that you almost can bend time because of it, and your time expands, and he's absolutely right. This is what I have found. The more I meditate, the more I have a total focus on actually what I want out of my life and what I want to do, and I create far more intention behind it.
Yeah, totally. When I had chronic fatigue, I listened to a lot of Jon Kabat-Zinn. I loved his style of relaxation technique, and it really, really worked for me. And if I'm ever in a situation, say I'm going on a long car journey and I'm not doing the driving, I will plug into something that he's saying, and I will just sit there in my own world, and it just calms me down. It just keeps me in a really grounded place. I love it. There's a saying, oh gosh, how does it go? That the pupil asks the wise man, "I know I need to meditate for half an hour, but I can't find the time. What should I do?" Meditate for at least 1 hour. And that is so true.
Yeah.
Because it just makes all the world of difference to do that. Yeah. And people say, "But I don't have time. Okay, let's walk you through your day. I'm asking you to spend 1 minute 3 times a day out of 24 hours to actually just stop and breathe." And they're like, "Oh yeah, okay." All right then, I will find 3 minutes in my 24 hours. It's like, of course you can do it. It's just that, one, you're not used to doing it. And so you have to, like with everything in life, you teach yourself how to. And even if you have to physically diary that time in some way, you must stop and do it. Even if it's at the point where you're about to go shopping and the kids are screaming, etc., etc. Just get everyone in the car, sit behind the steering wheel, and for 1 minute, just close your eyes. And everything around you will slow right down, and your kids will stop screaming as well, because they're wondering why you're not paying them any attention. And it works brilliantly. Just as there's always those 3 minutes in the day. Always. There's no excuses for not doing it. If you want to then expand it, then increase those 3 separate minutes to 3 separate 5-minute slots, and do it that way. And if you're at work, just put a sign on the door, closed for meditation, and just do it. It's just get everyone else doing it, and get the practice wherever you are, the practice of meditation and mindfulness as part of your life, and it will make such a huge difference. It has to mine, really has. I can't extol the virtues of it highly enough. Just can't.
I agree with you. Now, you mentioned someone there who I've never heard of called Jon Kabat-Zinn. Can you spell his name for us so I can put it in the chat box?
He's an American chap. John is Jon.
Yeah.
no H in it. Kabat is Kabat hyphen Zinn, Zinn.
Okay, I'll put it in the chat box for everyone.
Yeah, it's brilliant. He's written several books, and he's doing a lot of mindfulness research with Bangor University over in North Wales.
Gosh, who'd have thought?
Absolutely. There's a great, one of the books I got of his, which, and I actually bought it because it had the CD with it, and it's called The Mindful Way Through Depression. And it's just a great book to use, and it's a lot of the practices in it are also based in cognitive behavioural therapy as well. So it's written in a certain style so that it moves you through how you're feeling. And he's saying that that a lot of what is classed as depression and is actually given prescribed medication is given for is actually chronic unhappiness. People are unhappy with their lives and don't recognise that actually the only person that can do anything about that unhappiness is the person themselves, and they're waiting for something to happen, and actually it's that person that has to do the happening, if you like. So it's that over to the person to take responsibility. That can be very difficult when you feel under a cloud all the time, and you just don't know where to turn. That can be very difficult, and I totally get that because I was there. I have been there. I know what that feels like.
Well, when you're there and somebody's telling you that actually it's your fault, it's very difficult to understand that. And seeing that from the outside, afterwards in hindsight, it's great. But actually, I remember a couple of people saying, "You're creating this."
Yeah.
And I almost wanted to lynch them.
No, I get that. I do understand that. And I felt like that as well. That anger, that frustration. How dare you speak to me like that and tell me this? What are you going to do to help me?
Yeah.
And that, I've been there. I know what that feels like. And I actually, just moving on to another subject which is very dear to me, and I know to you as well, and that's the Chinese 5 elements.
Yeah.
It was when I started to read the Chinese 5 elements and about them that the penny really dropped, and that's when alternative therapy became a big part of my life. I began to understand the effect that the emotions have on us, and that to express appropriately a negative or a positive emotion is the best way to live in this world. And traditional Chinese medicine, we've got such a lot to thank it for, we really do. And the Chinese 5 elements for me has been the biggest thank you I could ever give whoever they were that put the Chinese 5 elements together.
I agree. It was you that actually helped me to really understand the 5 elements. Up to that point, I remember, I'll just explain to the audience, I could not get to grips with the 5 elements. In fact, it was probably the only part of the course that I thought was madness. And I just thought, what on earth are the Chinese about, honestly? I've got no idea. They have thousands of years behind them, but quite frankly, this makes no sense. And then we were on a support tutor day for nutritional healing, and I was stood outside the office and actually said to Denise, I cannot get to grips with 5 elements, it makes no sense. And you just quickly outlined how you used it. And from that moment on, it informed everything for me.
Yeah.
It just changed absolutely everything. And if people do nothing else, go and learn your 5 elements, because they really will help you to get to grips with yourself and emotions and why you do things you say, all sorts of areas.
Oh yeah, they are. That one, it helped me to get to grips with me, and 2, it really did. After Bruce Lipton, the 5 elements were the thing that really helped me cross that bridge from the medical model into a much more complementary alternative therapy lifestyle. And it took me from being a judgmental person who I thought I was always really aware of other people and all that, and I so wasn't, into a much, much, much more compassionate person. I would stop, and I couldn't read enough, and I still can't get enough about Chinese 5 elements. I just can't. It's brilliant stuff. But I would, when I was in company with people, I started to try and work out what were they actually saying? Why were they saying it? How were they saying it? And which element did it fit into? If they were wearing blue all the time, are they actually a water element, or are they just looking for reassurance in their water element? And all of this, and it just started to make so much more sense. At one point it was really confusing. I really didn't get it. But what I was trying to do was I was trying to separate each element and put things into each element and see them separately. And then I suddenly thought, no, we're connected. It's a connecting thing. And once I got that whole concept of everything is connected, and you can feel depressed in any and all of the elements, that's when it really came home to me. And when I'm with my clients, I talk a 5-element language. When I'm listening to them, I'm listening to hear the words they're using. And I've had quite a shy client recently, and since she's been coming to see me, she's been about 6 or 7 times now, suddenly the word frustration has come up. In the last session, she must have used the word about 7 times in an hour. And I thought, oh, there's something going on there. There's a liver problem there. But, she's been hiding, but obviously she feels more confident now to talk. And I said, oh, next time, because it was all coming, I'm frustrated about this, frustrated about that. I was frustrated in my job. I was frustrated, blah, 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 blah. And I thought, right, liver needs working on. And it was great to just be given that pointer. And so I said to her, right, next time we're going to focus on your liver. And she's like, oh, all right then. Why? It's because you've come up with this word so many times, and it's one of the words that the Chinese have attributed to the wood element. The wood element is liver and gallbladder. And you know what? She had a gallbladder removed some years ago.
Yeah.
So there's a real deep-seated, something isn't working for the liver properly.
Yeah.
So it's a great tool. It's one of my all-time favourites. It really is. And I have got so many books and little bits and pieces. Can I recommend something while we're on air?
Please.
Yeah. I don't know whether you've got these, but I've got these lovely little 5 elements reference cards.
Oh, okay.
That's what they're called. And they're by a lady called Jessica Kennedy.
Yeah.
And you can go on her website, which I think is just Jessica Kennedy. I'm just trying to...
in the box.
Let me just have a little look. I can't see anywhere on the cards that there's an actual website. But I looked her up, and she might be an acupuncturist. I can't remember now. But this little set of cards is just fantastic. And it's just, they're postcard size cards, and they've got a nice shiny finish, so they're going to, wear well. And it's just brilliantly laid out. You've got all of the... what she's done on the cards, you get 2 cards for each element. So one is about nourishing the element and what you need to do to nourish every aspect of it.
Can we just cover the 5 elements? Because people are actually starting to put in the box about it.
What are they?
And people are thinking of wind, fire, water and heaven, and they're coming up with metal and wood. Do you want to just put it into perspective? Because the one we use is very acupuncture led, isn't it?
Yes, it is very much so. So the 5 elements that we're actually referring to are, and I'll go through them in terms of seasons, and I always start with the spring, and that's the wood element. The colour is green, the organ of the body is the liver, and the primary emotion is anger. And obviously the flip side of that is lack of anger. People struggle sometimes to actually get fired up about anything. And then we come into the summer, and the fire element, and the fire element is to do with our heart in particular, and anything around joy or lack of joy. And then we have what the Chinese did was very cleverly, they slotted in a part of a season, I think, really, and that's the earth element, and that's when everything is coming to fruition. That's when everything is ripening before we go into the autumn. And with the earth element, the organs of the body are the stomach and the spleen. And then we come into the true autumn, which is the metal element. The colour is white, the emotion is grief, and the lungs and the large intestine are the main organs of the body associated with that. And finally we have winter, and that's the water element, and that's the colour for that is blue, but it should be quite a dark blue-black colour. And that's our kidneys and our bladder, and the emotion associated with it is fear, or lack of fear. Could be our courage. And it's just brilliant. It's just the most amazing system. And it's like, oh my God. The Chinese, at a time when apparently, all those thousands of years ago, they weren't allowed to dissect a body to find out what was going on. It was all done through trial and error. And for the Chinese at that time, it was how are the emotions that we show or don't show, what is the impact they are having on our bodies, and that's where it all comes from. So those are the elements I'm talking about.
I don't know if you find, but I've started to get quite skilled actually. As someone walks through the door of the clinic, I can almost know what I'm going to be working on. And, you know, the cell salt picture and all those aspects. That is really quite fascinating, because if you told me that a few years ago, I'd have laughed. But actually this huge amount you can tell from someone just walking towards you.
Oh, totally. You can, can't you? The way they're walking, their whole, not just a body language thing, but now for me it's much more of a vibrational thing. You can just see it in them. And I know from that second what we need to work on. But it might take 4 or 5 sessions before I can even bring it up with someone. Yeah. Because, you know, that's my training. That's how I know what to do with them. But it is fascinating, absolutely fascinating, and I can't get enough of it. I really love it. I was just was going to recommend a book as well, but I'll have to just get off my chair and walk to the bookshelf. So can you just talk 2 seconds?
Can I just talk? I'm from the north. We're hardwired that way.
Yeah, one of my recent books is called Traditional Chinese Medicine for Women. Yeah. And this is a great book. This is a lady whose name I have no idea how to pronounce. I could spell it for you if you wanted to put it on your chat room.
Okay, so I haven't got that one. So if you can Skype me the name,
okay,
I will actually then put it in the box. So I put the name of the book in the box already for everybody.
Okay.
So.
Yes.
And it is a good book, because I know I borrowed it off a friend just recently.
Yeah, it's a great book. It taking you through that sort of a woman's life cycle and how differently in traditional Chinese medicine, the health of a woman, the words that are used are looked at. So, for instance, in Western medicine, and certainly as a Western woman, as the way I was brought up, that things like when a girl starts her period and the pain and all of that is what is focused on and becomes the curse. Whereas in traditional Chinese medicine, it's the start of the flow of our heavenly water, and there's something that's what's the word I'm looking for? It's treated, with great respect, whereas in this country, it's anticipated with fear, and it's just complete opposite, really. And I just loved reading this book, and I read it. I went through it very quickly. The language I really got very, very quickly. Pregnancy is planting the seed and ripening the fruit. It's a beautiful way of putting it. It's just gorgeous. And then when it comes to the menopause, it's your second spring. And that's the time when women can really find out, no more children, so that's all past, and find out what our true purpose in life is. And if women allowed themselves that freedom to actually do that, instead of approaching it with fear, God, we'd all be so much happier and more nurtured within ourselves. And we could create a much happier, more nurtured planet and people around us as well.
It is interesting about the negativity around women's bodies and what happens with them. I was having a conversation recently with a friend, and they were talking about going back onto contraceptives And I was saying, obviously from our perspective, we don't want that to happen because it takes over the function of the liver, all the planning starts to be affected, your endocrine system's affected. And every time they had their cycle, their period, sorry guys, I'd be going, oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah, totally.
And they'd be calling it the worst thing in the world.
I know. And I've been there. I've done it myself because, the way I was brought up, medically trained initially, etc., etc. That said, I do also, I sort of have a foot in both camps, really, having had 30 years as a nurse and now just a few years on the alternative side of things. So I think I do tend to work with my clients, certainly my kids and that, where they're at, and I only give the advice that I know is actually going to be received in a positive light. That doesn't mean I don't give advice they might not want to hear, but I do it in a very much more positive way, thanks to the Chinese 5 elements. Right. So I can turn things around and actually give a different point of view now. Whereas at one time I was much more doom and gloom about things, but I don't feel like that anymore. And the Chinese 5 elements does give me that language that I can turn it on its head now, and go, right, okay, you're feeling this, but if we just did this, then let's feel something else. Let's work on a different aspect of whatever the condition is and see it in a different light. And once you start to see it in a more positive way, then things do change. Everything changes. It's incredible, really. I love it. I love 5 elements.
I was having a conversation yesterday in the presentation, and part of it is the fact that within 12 months, 70% of your body can be regenerated.
Yeah.
So in effect, everything can change, and it can change on a heartbeat.
Totally.
Most people, they are stuck with their bodies and their health and their life the way it is. And actually, it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, it really doesn't. And I think when I first started the course, I was I was a lot scared.
I think we all were.
I was like, freaking hell, I've been in medicine all this time. But obviously, there was a level of me that was like, to stay in Western medicine any longer was not going to be right for me. So there was a part of me that really intuitively got it right. And although for quite some time, as a student and as a support tutor, I certainly was not enjoying good health in any way, shape or form. Once I got through that and I started to work on me, my change my direction, my journey, I got off that bus and I got on another one. I can only be positive about my health and my life now. It really has changed so much for the better. And part of it is this journey. If I hadn't been as ill as I was, I know I would not have that level of understanding for my clients, because I've been there. I know what it feels like. And I can go to them. Do you know what? I have been there. I've experienced that. I know what it feels like. And I know how to throw you a lifeline. And it's over to you if you want to accept that or not. It's all been part of getting me to where I am now. So I've gone from experience and knowledge, and now that experience and knowledge is enmeshed, and it's wisdom. And it's that wisdom that I impart to my clients. And I think it's what is going to help me build and become successful in my practice. Bring it on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how do you apply what you've learned to your own health on a daily basis? What are the key things you do? And also Michael asked what the 3 most important things that you would recommend. So obviously that's 2 questions there. Sorry.
Right, okay. Well, actually, I talk about 5 important things. And very briefly, they are breathing appropriately, which we've talked about. So doing some mindfulness breathing as well. Hydration, really, really important. I tend to know if I'm not drinking enough. It's a sense within me now. I just know it. I think, oh God, I'm just not drunk enough today. And what I will do if I know I'm not taking on board enough fluid is I will actually diary what I'm not doing, doing or not doing, so that I can then assess it and go, right, why is this happening? And I've got to get back on track with that, because I know I just don't feel right. My breath, goes more stale, etc. There's just things that work that I know for me aren't working appropriately. And then the third thing is the nutrition. I'm no saint. I don't. I'm quite the sinner. I will I will indulge if it's a family night out or whatever. I will have. Usually it's dessert. There are things I absolutely stay away from nutrition-wise that really don't agree with me. Red meat doesn't agree with me. I don't even know the last time I ate red meat now. I've not had it in years. Wheat I avoid, but not necessarily gluten. I don't always ask if there's gluten in the food that I'm given in, say, in a restaurant. Dairy products, I do have to avoid milk, but I can tolerate yogurt and butter. So there are certain things that I do avoid, but I do have a sweet tooth and I do like a nice dessert, so I will have that. But I then, I've intoxicated myself, intoxicate, and I then have to work out how I'm actually going to deal with that. And then the next thing is supplementation. So what do I need and when do I need it? And what I do with supplementation is I use Site K. So sometimes with supplementation, it's a bit like playing the piano. Sometimes I'm up here on keys, sometimes I'm down there. And it's just working out what's the right tune for me to have. Sometimes on a daily basis, usually on a weekly basis, I just go with what I need for that week. And then the final thing is managing the movement that's needed within my body. So for movement, that might be, am I doing my mindfulness breathing? If I haven't, then I want to do more of that because that's moving the oxygen. What else do I check? Is my urine output okay? Do I need an enema? If we want to talk about things like that. And I don't do them on a regular basis. I do them when I feel it's appropriate now for me. I used to do them very regularly when I was ill. It was part of my routine. I would do my enemas. Now I do it as and when. Packing, castor oil packing. Does my liver need some support? In the spring, things like that. So that's the 5 a day that I look at. Not necessarily every day, but that's the sort of thing that I'm looking for. And what was the first thing? The key things I do. Again, that depends on the seasons. It depends on the time of year as to what I'm doing. Spring, I do like to get my juices going and thinking of the wood element and the liver, and the colour is green in the spring. So I'll bring in a lot more green foods, which I have, without realising I'm doing it, over the winter I have much more warmed cooked food, and then not necessarily lots of greens in there, but I will bring them back in the spring. If the summer's warm, oh, God love it, should it ever be?
You reckon?
A lot more cooling foods will come in, so I will keep the juices going, and not necessarily in my, have a lot more salads and sprouts and things like that, my seeds and that more. And then gradually as we go through the seasons, looking at what's in season, what's meant to be in season. Obviously we get things all year round now, but there are times when it just doesn't feel right to eat strawberries in winter. But I will, when the cherries are back in the supermarkets, I will bring a lot more of that sort of food into my late summer diet. And then going back into the winter, going back to the foods that are warmer, and I'll probably start to change my juices and smoothies for more things like porridge. That sort of, making oat porridge, millet porridge, quinoa porridge, whatever grain I feel is appropriate, if it feels right for me. But I always try and tune in with what is right for me. Other things that I do, we just mentioned the enemas, I will do those as and when. The breathing is really important for me. Trying can't think of anything else. The hydration's really important. And yeah, it's just constantly, it's not one thing is more important than anything else. It's making sure that to get as much of a balance as possible. And I know when I'm going out of balance because I feel overwhelmed. And I know if something's not right and I'm out of balance because I'll head for the chocolate. And it's, I used to kid myself that it was all right because it was always over 70%, but it's not all right because it's not a food that's actually giving me nutrition. It's feeding something on an emotional level that I'm either not expressing or I'm ignoring it for some reason. And so when I then diary in time to sit with myself and work out what is the problem, why am I doing this? And it might be that I need to look at the supplementation again. There's something that I'm choosing to eat because my body's not able to create it effectively. So I need to check on my oils, etc., etc., and just see what's going on there. When we've got more daylight, I spread out over the time that I eat because I like to eat with the light, and so sometimes I will eat later at night if that feels okay. In the winter, I tend to have finished eating by 5 o'clock in the evening. I don't like to eat late; it's too dark. And I'd rather rest and be much more reflective. I read a lot more in the winter than I do in the summer. Yeah, so again, that goes cyclically, but it's what feels right for me. So like this morning, when it's light, I will get up and I will go for a walk. I live in a really lovely part of Chester, and it's just gorgeous. And we've had I don't know what it's been like where you are, Des, but I think the whole country's had it. It's a torrential rain, and today it's dry. So get out and make the most of it. The light, the air, walk, because I can walk by the river here in Chester. You know, I'd love to walk by water and feel the energy of the water and the flow. And I'll have thoughts about my flow, and am I flowing in the right direction and things like that, or am I trying to paddle upstream, you know, and it's just be too much of an effort. So lots of connections made with words that are used that are a physical thing, but also can be linked to emotional stuff as well. So that's the sort of thing that I do.
We've just got a question come up from Lee again. It's basically still with the urine therapy, so it's kind of taken this back a little bit. But is there any noticeable difference with taking urine warm straight away or later chilled in the fridge? Just curious. What would what your perspective on that?
I think the older it is, regardless of whether it's been kept in the fridge or not, it's going to change its chemical composition, and you're going to get that more ammonia smell as the urea changes. And I know that in some urine practices that's essential. You actually want to get that chemical change. I think for other purposes you want it as fresh as possible. So for instance, like on my cold sores, if they're split and bleeding, I will use it as fresh as possible rather than leave it. And it just, the warmth of it fresh seems to be much more soothing on me rather than going for something that's colder. So that's just a personal thing for me. And again, if I was working with a client who wanted to do urine therapies, then I would work out with the client what was right for them.
And Lee's come back saying, so consume quick then. It really depends, Lee, on what actually you want to achieve. And this is with everything that you'll hear us talk about. So you've heard Denise talk about supplementation that she only does at certain times, and the food changes. So it's always about what's your intention behind what you want to achieve. Yeah. And therefore it's not like a medical model. It's very different because it's about asking yourself what is the intention of the change you want to create in the body, and therefore that informs how you will apply the different therapies and processes behind healing. So hopefully that's answered your question a little bit better, Lee. But thank you. Okay, and Univoice, are you taking piss? Everyone's talking about drinking piss.
I think I would
on my show.
I don't know about you, Des, but I recall Ali Holden talking about urine therapies and saying that if you were really, really keen to go through like a urine cleanse, that you have to walk into it and walk out of it. You can't just go from this radio show now, go, right, I'm going to go and drink all the pee that I produce. It's not like that. It's much more subtle than that. And so it's much better to have started to alkalise the body by juicing for a while, that sort of thing, so that the actual composition of the urine is much more in tune with what you want to do, i.e. cleanse. It's much cleaner to start with. And then if you are going to go on a urine fast, I think I would suggest that you go somewhere where you can be monitored, because it can be so cleansing that it can bring up all sorts of emotional crap, physical crap. You know, there can be stuff there that you don't even know that you're ready to get rid of. And you may need help managing it, and you may need help coming out the other side of it. So this is not this. You know, although we're sort of laughing about it, this is not something to be taken light-hearted. This is a particular style of technique. And if you haven't been brought up using urine therapy, then I would suggest you tread very carefully to work out what is right for you. And you might have a particular purpose and intention behind this, and your body might go, we've decided to go somewhere else with this. Thank you for giving us the space to cleanse, and now we want you to get rid of this. And it might come as a big shock to you as to what actually comes up as a result of doing it. So please, you know, don't take this lightly. This is a very serious technique.
It's like anything. I recently have been working with a client, and I have very sick clients. That's what I tend to attract. People who've got Lyme's, ME, chronic fatigue, and they're significantly shattered from it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I introduced water too quickly to someone.
Yeah.
And that wiped them out, and I was getting emails going, oh, a big liver picture came up. And, you know, but, you know, like you say, you know, listen to Denise, because it is about this gentle move forward and about supporting the body all the way, and not just kind of launching yourself into something because, you know, it's the next thing on your list.
Totally. Yeah, it's the next sort of experience that you want to have. It's not quite like that. Just tune in with your body. Is your body ready for this? You know, it's not a thinking process. It's not, oh, I think I'll do it. Is it right for you? Does it feel right? Get in touch with your intuition and work with it from there is what I would suggest.
Brilliant.
And if you're not quite sure what I'm talking about here, then don't do it, is what I would say.
And work with someone like ourselves, because we're trained in a way where we've experienced everything we normally teach to our clients, and we work in an educational way. So fundamentally, we have experienced it ourselves, and we've experienced taking it too far and doing it too soon and all that, and not doing it enough. So that's what you get when you come to see a naturopath such as ourselves.
Yeah, totally.
And Marley's saying, I feel born again after drinking it. Brilliant.
Good for her.
Yeah, great. And, everyone's going about whether they're drinking it chilled or not at the moment.
Honestly, guys, don't worry about it.
So, Denise, is there anything specifically you're actually doing for this season to transition through it?
A lot of juicing, actually. That seems to have been the thing for me. Juices and smoothies. I don't know particularly why. Every time I go back onto food, it just doesn't feel right in my body at the moment, you know, onto cooked food. But I'm really happy with juices and smoothies. It's not a problem. I started in April, and I'm still, the majority of what I eat, if you like, is a juice or a smoothie. And it just feels so right to me. If I don't have a juice or smoothie, it's a salad. And there's obviously something that I need. You know, it just came up. I just knew I had to do it. And I've gone with it, and it feels right. So I do. It's not just plain juice or smoothied fruit and veggies. I do add protein powders. I use hemp protein powder. I use bee pollen. I'm not vegan, so I'll use that. And things like the adaptogens, I'll use maca and lucuma in there as well. But again, it's on much more, is this right for me? If I'm not sure, then I will just check with Site K if it's right for me at that moment in time. And because you know what it's like, we've learned some really simple, quick Site K techniques, so we can check that out. And the supplementation less so at the moment. Maybe that's as a result of all the juices and smoothies. So that's good. The only other thing that I have done is, after not having done any over winter, castor oil pack into my liver and enemas as well. So they've been really helpful. And yeah, very cleansing, but working for me. So I would recommend those. And I always do to my clients, because we all need to help our livers with any congestion that's there. Castor oil packings are brilliant for that. And then the just water flush enemas. I'm not doing any retention enemas. Work really well at the moment. It's all good stuff.
And there's a question from Gary on Scottish Sovereign. Hi, Gary. He's just asking, what happens if you have got a bladder infection and effectively you drink your urine? Would you be putting the infection back in? Ooh,
good one. I wouldn't at that point, I don't think, actually drink my urine. I'd be more inclined to really step up my fluid intake to really help flush the bladder out. I would be doing, I would do some water retention enemas, but I would use the water slightly warmer than body temperature water. And what that has done for me in the past when I've had bouts of cystitis is it's felt like an internal hot water bottle. It's felt like something very soothing has come into contact with my bladder, and that's been really, really reassuring. So that's the sort of process I go through. Your fans, radio fans, have got a big thing about urine, haven't they, at the moment?
We've been going on about it a lot just recently.
Yeah, and I think I would do things more like a warm hot water bottle just against the bladder. Nothing major. It depends what style of infection you think you've got, I think, as well. But as a woman, having had bouts of cystitis regularly over the years, learning just a couple of things, and really cutting down in my diet on anything which appears to affect my bladder. So interestingly for me, things like grapefruit, I don't eat anymore. I don't have oranges and grapefruit. There's something about them that are very irritating to my bladder. So I've cut those out of my diet. I don't have them anymore, but I'm all right with lemons and limes. So it's a whole process of working through as I was saying earlier, the bob and wows that work for you or don't work for you. So what's best for you? What's worse for you? And can you live with the worst some of the time, or do you have to cut it out all of the time? And so I worked out things like that. But it's a process. It takes ages. And it was like every time something came up, I think, God, I've not had this in years. Why have I got this now? And I would just work through it, and what works for me in that situation and what doesn't. And that's what I've done. And then that's how I help my clients to work out what's right or not for them. So yeah, that's me.
Fabulous. Well, Denise, you've been great.
Oh, thanks.
And just give us an understanding about your practice, and give us your website and your contact details in case anyone wants to get hold of you.
Okay, I'm Denise Oliver. My business is do-nutrition.co.uk, and what I say is I help people to connect with their health and well-being. It's a 360-degree holistic and natural approach to health and well-being, and I can help anyone, but my absolute passion is to help women to be the best that they can be, because I just really do feel that women have had a rough deal over the years, and it's time for them to take back their strength their way. We don't have to live in this man's world pretending that we can do things like men. We can't. We're women, and that is where my passion lies, helping women to be inspired and be as healthy as they can be.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Denise.
Thanks,
This has been Food for Thought with Debbie Walker and Denise Oliver, who today has been fantastic. Get in touch with her. Thank you, guys, and here's Shazise.